It began without warning, a simple, clear chime echoing from every device on Earth. Every screen, from billboards in Tokyo to radios in the Amazon, flickered to a gentle blue. The world's chaos paused. Traffic, markets, and conversations faded into silence. For one breathtaking moment, 7 billion people held their breath, united by a single inexplicable event. Then a voice spoke, calm, measured, impossibly clear. It spoke in every language, as if whispered directly into each ear. The message was devastatingly simple. In 10 minutes, all human life will cease to exist. Instantaneous, painless, nothing can be done. The words were not a threat, but a statement of fact, final, irrefutable. The message repeated once, then the screens went dark. The chime faded, leaving a silence heavy with the weight of the truth. In that first second, the world was frozen. A mother in a grocery aisle, a stockbroker in London, a child mid-swing. The ordinary rhythm of life shattered, replaced by a 10-minute chasm. There was no disaster to avert, no enemy to fight, no hope of survival. The announcement offered no explanation, just an end point. Humanity's expiration date, 10 minutes from now. The sheer simplicity was the most terrifying part. It stripped away all narratives, leaving only the raw fact of imminent extinction. The world had been given a death sentence, and the clock was already ticking. In that moment, the story of humanity was no longer about struggle or survival. It was about how we would spend our final minutes. The countdown had begun. The first minute was a collective gasp, a shield of denial against the unthinkable. People looked at each other, confusion and nervous laughter masking fear. It had to be a prank, a hoax, a marketing stunt. The mind refused to accept such an abrupt ending. Life couldn't just stop in 10 minutes. Frantic searches for confirmation began, but the internet was silent, networks dead. The infrastructure that delivered the message now sealed humanity off, alone with its knowledge. The lack of information was confirmation enough. Nervous laughter died, replaced by panic and disbelief. The world's veneer of civilization began to crack. Yet, amid chaos, some found stillness. An old man closed his eyes, a nurse held a patient's hand. For some, the news brought not panic but acceptance. The weight of a lifetime of worries was replaced by a single unifying certainty. The first minute was a chaotic symphony of denial, fear, and quiet resignation. The world braced itself for what was to come, As the second minute began, shock turned to desperate urgency. The end was no longer abstract. It was personal. The need to connect swept the planet. With technology silenced, people poured into the streets, running not from the end, but toward each other. A young man sprinted through Seoul clutching a flower. A mother in Nairobi gathered her children. The world became a blur of motion driven by love. Millions raised silent phones whispering, "I love you," into the void. Technology's failure was a cruel irony, but strangers became family. A sob was met with a comforting hand. People helped each other up. In these final moments, barriers melted away. Humanity's instinct for connection overpowered fear. The world, united in vulnerability, reached for one another. The third minute saw the collapse of the old world's rules. Law, commerce, and order dissolved, revealed as stories we told to keep chaos at bay. Property became meaningless. A man in a suit watched the river, his possessions stripped of value. In cities, people broke into shops. not to loot but to share, bread handed out, roses given freely. Acts of kindness replaced greed, institutions of power faded. Police and politicians became just people rushing to loved ones. The illusion of control vanished, replaced by humbling equality. Lifelong resentments seemed absurd. Old wounds were wept over and healed. Social masks fell away. There was no time for anything but honesty. The world was stripped to its emotional core. In the face of the ultimate deadline, only truth remained. Humanity faced itself, unvarnished and real. In the fourth minute, anarchy and altruism coexisted. Traffic lights blinked over abandoned cars, alarms blared, ignored. Yet beneath chaos, a deeper order emerged, instinctual decency. A young woman helped an elderly man, a doctor stayed to comfort patients. The concept of stranger vanished, everyone became family. People gathered in circles, sharing stories and simple joys. A construction worker shared a cigarette with a banker, a teacher read to adults. The end was not violent but filled with small acts of compassion. Stripped of hope for gain, humanity chose to give. The chaos was one of love, not destruction. The world in its final moments came together. A fleeting, beautiful community was born. 5 minutes to go, the world's frantic energy faded into sorrow. The running stopped, the shouting quieted. A global chorus of goodbyes rose, whispered and heartfelt. Parents held children, pouring a lifetime of love into seconds. Lovers found each other, cherishing the journey they'd shared. Faces were memorized, hands held tight. Goodbyes were quiet, tender, filled with aching beauty. This was also the minute of forgiveness. Old wounds were mended, feuds ended with a look or a word. Forgiveness was given freely. Grudges were too heavy to carry. The air was thick with reconciliation, a final act of grace. The world, cleansed of old pains, prepared for the end. Love and forgiveness became humanity's final gifts. With goodbyes spoken, a search for peace began. The scramble for connection gave way to quiet reflection. People sought places of meaning, a beach, a childhood tree. In sacred spaces, people gathered not for salvation, but for comfort. Others found solace in nature, forests, rivers, mountains. Artists performed final acts, a violinist played, a painter added a last stroke, a poet wrote a final verse. These were not for an audience, but for the soul. A profound quiet descended, alarms faded, weeping softened. The world held its breath, not in fear, but acceptance. The struggle was over, all that remained was to wait. Humanity, in its final act, sought peace with the inevitable. The darkness would be faced with steady gaze. The world prepared for its last moments. As the 8th minute arrived, the world grew profoundly still. Silence enveloped everything, broken only by wind and breathing. The frantic energy was gone. What remained was waiting. This stillness was full of every life, every love, every dream. People turned their faces to the sky, not for a sign, but to witness the world's beauty one last time. The color of the sky, the feel of a breeze, every detail was cherished. Nature reclaimed its prominence. Bird song and rustling leaves became symphonies. Humanity listened, no longer masters, but part of the landscape. There was nothing left to do but exist, to feel, to be. The divisions of the past were meaningless. The world waited together, unified in stillness. The final moments arrived. The countdown was now seconds. There was no more fear, only acceptance and peace. Humanity had looked into the abyss and found quiet grace. Around the world, people reached for one last touch, a hand, a shoulder, an embrace. These final gestures affirmed, "You are not alone, we are in this together." The world turned to the horizon, watching the sun set in a blaze of color. Ordinary beauty became a final, perfect gift. The end came as promised, instant, painless, silent. One moment, the world was full of shared consciousness. The next, it was empty. The sun continued to set. The wind and waves carried on. The planet, beautiful and indifferent, moved through space. The story of humanity ended not in chaos, but in peace. It was a final unified gaze at a beautiful horizon, and then there was only silence.